Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week was my wife's birthday. And being that she's going through stage 4 colon cancer, each one of these are more important than ever. This year, Ange went downtown with 12 of her girlfriends for a brunch. When I got the call at 4:30 to come downtown to meet up with them to catch a free Dinosaur Jr. show, I was like, holy shit, and I headed home from crabbing and headed to the show. And you know what? Seattle is fucking awesome in the summer. Yeah, we have a major homeless problem, or unhoused, or whatever I'm supposed to call them, and there's a ton of property crime, but outside of that, there are so many cool people and so much cool shit to do in this city. The Dinosaur Jr. show was incredible, and it was something I needed to show me how great this city was again, because I forget that sometimes. The day after Ange's birthday, we did a nice fancy dinner at the Capitol Grill. The Capitol Grill in Salt Lake City is my favorite restaurant in the States. The food's incredible, and the owner, Bill, well, he's a hardcore skier. And the Capitol Grill in Seattle was just as good. The only thing that was missing for me was Bill, but the folks in Seattle took good care of us, and I think Ange had a great birthday. So that was the good in our world, and I can finally share the bad news that I was kind of keeping away from everybody while I was at the beach. So Ange has worked for the same small company for over a decade, and it's been amazing. Her boss has been so understanding and supportive during this cancer journey, and while everything seems bad, that was a positive. Well, 2 days before we went on our beach vacation, we were made aware that Ange's boss is shutting down our company at the end of the year. And while losing half our income is going to be tough, the really tough pill to swallow is that we're insured through Ange's work, and that's going away. While Ange's boss said he's going to look out for her, I don't know what that means, and this whole situation is going to be a big challenge for the Powell family. We're still figuring out our options, and one of them is me getting a job again, which I'm hoping doesn't happen, as it could have a huge impact on this podcast project that I've put so much effort in over the years. All I know is that I do have to put my family first, and while I don't see myself quitting this, there is a chance that I will. Times are going to be scary, and if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I have a weird relationship with money, and this is going to stress me out so much that I anticipate getting my first gray hair soon. So that's the shitty part of my life, and as bad as things are for me, they are way worse for Ange. Her body has been through so much, and I see her living in pain every day, and it sucks. So that's the bad stuff. One of the good parts of my life, other than going and seeing Metallica and Pantera this weekend, a concert I bought tickets for in 2022, is this podcast. It's where I forget about me and my issues, and I get to dive into somebody else's. And after a long summer of being all over the board sport-wise, it is back to snow-focused episodes, and I'm going to start out with Olympic bronze medalist Alexi Beaulieu-Marchand, which I am trying to say his name correctly, but I'm sure I murdered it a little bit, but we'll refer to him as ABM throughout the podcast, as that's what everybody calls him. I'm not going to spoil ABM's story, but know that ABM is a core skier who ruled the streets, and he really wasn't focused on being a contest guy, but that kind of happened to him, and he took advantage of every opportunity that came his way, and he took it to the highest level possible. It's a cool story, and before we get into it, I'm psyched to announce that I have a new sponsor, Club Med. That's right, I said Club Med. And they offer the best ski vacations in the world at a price that's the same or less than booking a vacation at a super resort here in the States. The beauty of Club Med is that when you book, everything is included, and your ski vacation of a lifetime is basically a one-stop shop of the best experiences in the world in snow. I'm hoping that I get to visit Club Med this year, because the more I look into it, the better it looks, and you're going to be able to find out more about it during their ad in this podcast. But Club Med is not the only brand I want you to support. As you know, I only work with the best brands in the industry. Along with Club Med, those other great brands are Elon Skis, Stanley, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, and Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Now, it's time to get back to snow-focused episodes and talk with ABM. I'm going to start this one out with a classic story that totally screams the Powell Movement. I was talking with Nick Goepper, and he mentioned a story where you were with him. It was before he quit drinking on a coast trip, and he was hammered. He was 19 years old, and do you remember the night your Volvo was shit on, and what happens when a friend shits on your car?
That's an interesting story. That is far back in my memory. That is pretty funny. Man, thinking back at this, it definitely wasn't great that, that Nick decided to shit while sitting kind of on the bumper of my car. Like, I guess like he used that as like a sit and like shit right next to my car. There wasn't any shit on my car, thankfully.
Oh, okay.
So that's good. But yeah, it definitely wasn't the greatest, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I'll say he feels terrible about that one. But I reached out to him and I was like, Nick, I want to get a fun story from you for this podcast. And he calls me up and he's like, I've got a great story for you, but it's really sappy and it's full circle and I have to bring it up. So I'm going to tell you the story he was telling me. He said back when you two were at Windell's Academy and you guys were students, you guys stayed in the same house and you guys were teenagers and you guys were totally different on how you approach training. Ideologically, Nick wanted to work on his doubles and rotations and perfect his grabs during the summer because he thought that's what you had to do. Train hard, but you were different. You were focused on being stylish and in the streets and being super core. So while Nick is spending all day working on perfecting his Japan grabs, he looks over and almost laughs at you and he's like, why is ABM spending all his time working on pressing a 60-foot down flat down when he should be worried about his doubles? And was there a fundamental difference between your approach and Nick's approach to skiing and competitiveness or focus or passion or anything like that?
I mean, of course there was. Like, of course there was. Like, from day one, you know, like me and Nick got put in a room together and, you know, Nick's is a really driven person. But I think like we had completely different goals and completely different ways to like approach things. I think we were completely different in terms of like how we view things. And like at that time, I think Nick was really in a place where like he just like wanted it so bad and was working really hard towards it, which I think is one of his greatest qualities, right? Just like working so hard and like he was taking it so seriously, which was also something that I was like, oh, like that's crazy. And now like looking back, like it definitely had an effect on me as well, being like, you know, once like I got injured and like started to be more serious, I ended up being like a little bit more like him because he was doing all the right things like at a very young age and he had all that competitive success. But I think back then I just didn't want that. Like that's just not what I wanted. I didn't want like the competitive success. I like wanted to like be stylish, and the people that I grew up with and how I view things like just influenced me so much in that way. And I just wanted to like have sick tricks that I was proud of, and all I wanted to do was like, you know, win super unknown and go and film. And you know, in the end, like I did with step, like I got kind of still taken out on like the competitive route when like that's not really what I wanted at that time. So we had completely different goals, and I think that's how we approach things completely differently. And yeah, like I think, you know, going back to like the story of the shit on the car, it's like, man, we had different approaches, and like I definitely was partying way more than he was, and I was like out there like used to like, you know, drinking and stuff, and Nick is like 19, not used to drinking, like completely gets blacked out. Then he makes mistakes. It's like, of course, like, you know, but like all the homies that are there, then they see that, they're like, holy shit, like, and it definitely doesn't like give you a good image. But, you know, I cared about that. I cared about like the homies and all that stuff, but I was like more used to like being rebellious and stuff. He was like a straight and arrow, and then like it led him to have all the success, and it took me in a crazy different path.
Talking to him, though, he brought up the full circle part of it, and he was talking about the 2018 Olympics, and he's like, you know what? While he had his way of doing it and I had my way of doing it, and I thought my way was way better than his for getting to the Olympics and doing well in the Olympics, when we're both standing on a podium at the 2018 Olympics, I remember standing there and looking at him and just thinking to myself, man, I was so much more serious and focused, and he was having so much more fun and being more core, and it really didn't matter. It was just all about our ability and what we put into it, and we both took different directions and still ended up at the same path. So it's like, you can have those different philosophies, but it can all still work out, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think so as well. Well, you know, I guess like it's the proof there, but I don't know. I think in skiing now, it would be harder to do it the way I did it for sure. But because like it seems like the spinning is just endless, and I don't think I had like the gymnastic capabilities to do a 2160.
Yeah.
But I had some abilities to like look outside of the box, and that's how I got to be on that podium with Nick. Like not by trying to do what he was doing, because he was doing things that were way outside of like my gymnastic background and ability, and he trained that, and he's also like very good at that. But that was just not the way I did it. I did like a 900 on a jump in my run at the Olympics, you know? So it's like that talks a lot about like how I wasn't going for the spin to win, and I was just trying to like do grabs that nobody was doing and tweaks and like just little things that would make it kind of just like true to who I was and like elevate my run like to like a run that was podium worthy, I guess.
And you really have to put a lot of trust in the judging when you do that, when everything's based on the technical ability of what you're doing, just to make sure those dudes know exactly what's going on. Because we've seen it in some cases where they kind of overlook the tech stuff, and the spin to win stuff sometimes gets better scores.
Well, that's another like completely different topic.
Yeah.
There's like also like what your goals are, what your objectives are and stuff. And like, I think some people have objectives of winning at all costs, and like winning is the goal. Like for me, like winning was never the goal. So then it didn't really matter. You know, at some point, like I put so much pressure on myself, and I wanted to like be out there doing like the best and stuff. And then like I got injured, blew my knee, and then like a lot of injuries and just like different things. And that ended up like me really rethinking why I was doing this. And like the whole judging, when I came back from my knee injury, straight up my only approach was like, fuck the judges. I don't care what they think, and I'm not there for them. I'm not there to win medals either. Like I like pretty much don't care about that much. Like I wanted to land runs. I wanted to show good skiing. And if that was going to put me on a podium, then great. But I wanted to like enjoy this journey and enjoy this process and work my ass off, because I always love to like just push boundaries and go further and try new things. But that was what was pushing me, like not really like the medals, you know, not like the podiums. Like I never won a huge contest, and I absolutely don't care. Like I think it was just the approach of like being like, I'm gonna push to the next level, but I'm not gonna compare to anybody else. I'm not gonna care about what people think. I will just do the skiing that I think is cool, and hopefully people will like it, and that's it.
Well, it's a really refreshing take on the way that you look at skiing, and thinking about the passion for skiing that you have. I'm guessing that comes from your parents, because they're all about skiing. That's their thing. Were they ever competitive with it?
My grandpa actually was racing when he was young, and he was trying to qualify for the Olympics back in his day, but didn't quite make it. So I guess like there was all that aspect, but it was like in ski racing. And I don't know, my parents were always just like having fun on skis, just like skiing with their friends. That was kind of like their escape from like their work life and stuff. We go to the cottage on the weekends in the winter, and we just ski. And they would just put us in ski school. They didn't want to put me in racing or any programs, because it was their time to go enjoy it with their friends. And when you're racing, you're going to races all over the province all the time. You know, it's like so much. And I think they needed to chill when they weren't working all the time. So ski school it was. I even snowboarded when I was a kid. Like I would do ski school on Saturdays, snowboarding school on Sundays, like for 4 years. And I was just like having fun. And then like somehow people around me when I was a child, like some of my idols, just like the neighbor, you know, he was a free skier and he went in the park. So it's like, what? Like I want to be like him, you know? And it's just like tiny little influences that can go such a long way. And I feel like these guys like Félix Antoinette, man, Yann Bussière, so many of like the homies that I got young, Cédric Tremblay-Fournier, like just a couple riders that like were around. Charles Gagné, man, was one. It was huge. Like he was from Mont-Saint-Anne, you know, and like he was winning X Games when I was a child. So looking up to this guy that's like skiing my mountain, you know, he's winning X Games. Like then there's Vinny, that's a Vincent Gagné, was just a year older than me, that it was like ripping the park, and I'm like, oh my god, like, you know, I want to do this. And that's how it all came to like being like a passion that took me way beyond all my dreams and imaginations.
Well, it's funny with your parents, because like you said, they didn't want to put you in a race program, because then they'd be that race mom and dad that would have to go place to place. But your first team sport was hockey, and they kind of pushed you away from hockey because they didn't want to be those hockey parents. They didn't want to be sitting in a hockey rink when they should be skiing powder. So they were like, look, you're not going to be playing serious hockey. We're going to go to the cottage every weekend and we're going to ski. Where is the cottage? And do you guys go literally every weekend during the winter?
It's in Mont-Saint-Anne, and yeah, it was like, 45 minutes outside the city, and we would go like pretty much every weekend in the winter. And they would ski all the time. Like my mom is a really good skier actually, and my dad rips. Yeah, he's a ripper. And yeah, I'm hoping to even do like a ski trip with them. I feel like I've never taken the time to do that. And that's something that's been on my mind for a long time. And it's time to make it happen before it's too late.
Yeah, man, totally. You got to make that happen. And, thinking back, like when you were playing hockey, today you're this really talented athlete. I mean, Olympic level athlete. But if you would have stuck with hockey, you're like almost 6 foot. I think you probably have the size where you could be NHL sized if you put a lot of time in the gym. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you went all in on hockey? Do you think there would have been a chance for you to make it?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think in anything that you put your mind into and you're extremely passionate about, there's always a way. Would it have been easy in the hockey? No, like it's an extremely competitive place. Would I have had the discipline when I was young to do it? I'm not sure. But at the same time, like I guess like skiing was like an escape for me, but I just had a lot of fun doing it. So then I would just do it a lot nonstop. Like I had a little rail set up in my backyard, like summer setup and stuff. And it's like my parents for that, like they were sick. Like they didn't really say no. Like they were like, all right, sure. Like, and if I had like a good plan to go to, I don't know, like summer camps and stuff, they were like, well, you should raise money. But like, then I did. And then like, they were like, all right, yeah, sure, you can go. They were like letting me do things and they were trusting me in that. And that was awesome. But would I have made it in hockey? Like, that's really competitive. And I don't think I would have like liked it enough. The freedom of skiing is just like what was so sick. And you could just do whatever you wanted and kind of like do it a lot on your own time, like hockey, maybe. But that's interesting. That's a tough question. I was also like still 5'8" at the end of high school, like in 12th grade. So it would have been hard.
Okay. So you mentioned that you were skiing and you were snowboarding. Are you doing the same shit with each tool? Like, are you hunting for air and rails and jibs on your snowboard and skis and like doing the exact same thing? And which was more fun for you?
When I was a kid, it was like mostly the slope and like the little like hits in the woods and like a little bit of the park. And I guess like I was like doing pretty much exactly the same on skis and snowboard. I was having a ton of fun snowboarding, like a lot of fun. And I enjoyed it a lot. Like, it was really like only just people around me that influenced me back towards skiing because, yeah, the neighbor was skiing and I was like, oh, like he's skiing in the park. So like I should do that. Like that's straight up the only reason why I quit snowboarding to ski all the weekend, like at some point. And it was pretty random because it could have been a snowboarder and I could have went down the snowboard route like easily.
When you pick skiing, I mean, do you full on grom out in it? I mean, do you start watching those old Playhouse movies and maybe some of the Poor Boys movies that are going on? And like you said, you're aware of like, the Charles Gagnes, like you said, you're aware of all that stuff going on. But are you totally into the scene as well?
As soon as like kind of like that first year I decided just to go skiing, I was already like completely involved in like everything that was going on. New Schoolers, like, like I had been given the dream by some other people that I was idolizing, right? And I was already deep in it, like, and it was like I was 11 years old and I was deep into the dream of like going to X Games and stuff and just like filming, and I'd watch all the movies like with my friend, right, an older friend that I'm idolizing, and then it was instant.
And so it sounds like your personal ski crew is much older. Like when you're 12 years old, you're skiing with 18-year-olds. Is that when all the urban shit starts for you, just going around Quebec and finding rails?
Yeah, exactly. Like at 12 years old, I like hit the red ledge. Like that was great. Now back to red. Yeah, like I don't know, the older guys around me that were like making ski movies and like they were like, oh, you're good, like come with us, and like my parents would let me do that because they knew these guys like from the neighborhood and they were like, yeah, they're good people, like all good. They knew their parents. So it was like, I don't know, it all worked out. And yeah, like it was from a young age. And then like next thing you know, like at 14, I was maybe like I was filming with JF Wool and stuff. It went crazy fast. And I learned so much from these guys.
Yeah, I mean, when you're the little kid with older kids like that, and these kids can party at that point, I think the drinking age up there was like 18 or something like that. Do you grow up fast? Do you see all that shit in the city and are you involved with it all at a young age and do your parents find out?
Like I saw it all happen and that was like very interesting. And I think like it did make me grow up faster, but like I wasn't involved in it at all. Like I wasn't like doing drugs or like drinking like for a very long time, let's say. And then like I really like the first time I drank wasn't with those older guys. Like it was with the kids my age at 16, for the first time, or 15 maybe. And slowly, but it wasn't with these guys. sure, they were like doing their thing, but they weren't trying to have me involved in it by any means. And I don't think I would have wanted to. But I guess it did come, eventually when I was like 16, 17, 18, the partying and stuff. But like, that's just life. Like, I feel like a lot of kids in Canada will be partying by that age. And I think like I did have my party years. But yeah, now like I don't have FOMO anymore. It's great.
And did you guys ever get in any trouble back then when you're roaming the streets doing your thing?
I mean, not really. Like, honestly, just like, sure, like the cops showed up a handful of times, if not more. But realistically, like the guys that I were with weren't hooligans, like we were just being like, hey, like we're doing this. And like, I don't know, like we were doing this as a sport seriously. And we were like trying to film and stuff. So like if cops came, we'd go talk to them and like approach it as like always like the calmest, and you go see them and you're like, hey, like this is what we're doing, like like all good, like we're not here to break anything, whatever, like make them feel at ease. And that's how you get away with it the most often. So I would say that the calm and like mellow approach is always the way to go. Be polite to the cops.
Now it's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm so stoked to have Club Med sponsor the podcast. And while some of you may be thinking, Club Med, isn't that for the best island vacations? Yes, while they offer the all-inclusive luxury experience in the islands, they're the only all-inclusive brand to offer mountain resorts globally. That's right, you can ditch the hassle of planning your ski vacation of a lifetime on your own and do it the Club Med way, and book one of their trips to the snowy peaks of Europe, Japan, China, or Canada. When you travel with Club Med, you'll enjoy unlimited lift tickets, lessons for all levels, delicious meals, and endless après ski fun, all included in the price. And while your kids are having a blast at the supervised children's clubs, you can focus on mastering your skiing or après skills and creating unforgettable memories. To make it all happen for you or your family, visit clubmed.us or call 1-800-CLUB-MED or your travel advisor to experience ski without limits. Next up, it's Elan Skis. I've been skiing on Elan, the Ripstick and the Playmaker, for the past 3 seasons. And when I first started doing ads for Elan, I would rave about the quality of the skis because you really can see a difference in the fit and finish from an Elan compared to every other ski on the wall. I'd always attribute that to Elan having the best factory in skiing, their heritage in building spare no-expense yachts, and having real skiers build the skis in the Slovenian Alps. That combination has created lively, playful skis that remain rock solid underfoot at high speeds and have really made me feel like I'm a better skier. And while it's not ski season, when it is, if you demo skis before you buy them, please support me in what I do and try an Elan, and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. If you buy skis without the test drive, trust me, and head on over to elanskis.com to see all the choices, and you're going to have more fun on the mountain than you ever have before next season. My final sponsor this round is Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, and they are your one-stop shop for getting out on the mountains, out on the water, out on the trail, and beyond. And they've been doing it for over 65 years. Peter Glenn doesn't make their own branded products that compete with established brands. They aren't trying to get you to stay in a hotel or go on a vacation. Peter Glenn is all about making sure that you have the best time possible outdoors. And they do that by having all the brands, all the products, and all the deals, both in-store and online. It's not about algorithms or AI. Peter Glenn is all about having the most knowledgeable staff who help you get what you need to get after it. So if you ski, snowboard, inline skate, wakeboard, water ski, or need outerwear for your adventure, Peter Glenn has all the answers. And they offer free shipping on orders over $50, a hassle-free return policy, and they'll price match reputable dealers. So please support this podcast and buy your stuff over at peterglenn.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. You have a whole bunch of different parts to your game, but especially when you're younger, your rail game was so on point, and I attribute that, you probably do too, to just being in Quebec and going all rail to rail to rail. You had the backyard set up as well, but there was also a weird thing when you were growing up in high school. What was the deal with all the resorts pulling their jumps and you weren't able to have like jumps around when you needed them?
Yeah, that was interesting. That was not cool at all from RCR. I mean, it definitely ruined kind of like my childhood growing up a little bit, but then it took me on a different path, and that path worked out as well. And can't blame it all on them. Like, I guess like anything is possible if you really want, but I needed to like really go out of my way to go to Mont Orignal, this like Moose Mountain in Quebec, and they had sick jumps. And then like I ended up, I think, like getting better because like I would go to that mountain and they had like bigger and sicker jumps than Mont Saint-Anne would have ever had anyways. But Yeah, I did attribute a lot of time to practicing on rails, and I guess like it paid off in some way because the jumps ended up coming easier to me like later in my career almost. Because rails, you just got to grind for them. Like you just got to have so much time and practice. I feel like it's a skill that is easily forgotten. So you got to keep grinding always to be on point.
It's easily forgotten until there's 3 rails on a slopestyle course to start out a run, and you see all those guys who focus on the jumps not be able to grease the rails, and it ruins their whole run when they come off 2 feet early. And it's like, if you don't have that shit dialed, it's going to ruin your whole run in any contest.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely, in a way, like I fucked up rail runs as well in a bunch of different places, but I was less worried about that, and maybe I didn't have the jump skills, but I was often able to differentiate myself on rails, and that was part of my strategy for sure, and it was part of like what got me to all these podiums.
And then thinking about early on, was summer camp the best place you had to hit jumps because they were manicuring a couple different big jumps for you guys?
Oh yeah, it was always the best. Like Windell, so I went there as a kid, Momentum too, and yeah, it was epic. Like I would huck myself when I would go there. It was bad. Like I got a couple concussions early on in my career when I was a kid, and I'd go there and I'd just be like way too excited to go in, and I had all these tricks that I'd been just like stepping up to all season, but never tried them. But like when I went to summer camp, I would go for it, you know, and it was definitely where like I grew the most my skiing 1 week out of the year. Boom, summer camp, I would just like take my skiing to another level in that week or that 2 weeks. And yeah, it gave me a lot of opportunities to come out of Quebec City and spend time around Mount Hood and like meet all of the like American skiers and, you know, get friendly with a bunch of homies and just like getting in touch with Mike Hanley, which gave me the opportunity to go to the academy and meet Cary Miller. That helped me a bunch. And like, just like all these people. It's like if you stay home and like you don't take risk and like try to put yourself out there, then it's hard.
You know, this whole thing started with summer camp, and when you think about it, your parents I don't think are rich. I mean, they're skiers, and I don't really know what they do, but I don't think they're rich because I know that they made you help pay for that first year of summer camp. How were you able to pay for like half or even more than half of a Whistler summer camp, which has got to be like $2,500?
I think it's, you know, not necessarily about the income or like the finances of my parents. It was about, you need to reach this goal if you want to go there. So like if I was able to like do something and reach it, then it was going to be like that I'm serious about really wanting to go there. Because kids, I think, like are pitching ideas to their parents every other day. And I was that kind of kid, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do this nonstop. So like that made sense for them to like be like, all right, let's see how serious he is about these things that he wants to do. And I ended up having like a friend of my sister that was knitting hats at like another high school where I wasn't going. I like asked her to like teach me, and then I started knitting crocheted hats, and then I made it like a whole thing at my high school because I was selling like hats that had like the color of my high school's football team, and I would like write on it, you know, the Q and the B, like have it like titled if that was your position and stuff. So I made it a whole thing. Everybody wanted them. I made a fortune actually.
Oh, that's sick, man.
It was pretty funny.
So you're able to go to summer camp, and that first year, like you said, you're able to learn a shit ton. But who are the pros that really make an impression on you?
I mean, my first time at Windell's, my coach was Colin, and like he had such good style, and yeah, it was awesome. I could barely communicate with him. Honestly, I didn't speak a word of English back then, but just like seeing everybody, you know, like you, even like if you're not coached by Wallish that week, you just see him there. And like at some point I got coached by LJ Stranio. I really remember like pushing myself really hard that week, and he helped me a lot. And I don't know, just like seeing like Liam Downey had such a sick style, and I thought he was so sick. He was also being so friendly to me and like so many inspiration. Brady Perron was out there doing awesome. Wallish, LJ, Colin. I remember Jakob Wester too had coached me, and he was so insane. Still is.
That had to be so cool. And then the biggest part of the next season for you, I feel like, is the Salomon Jib Academy. And you make it to the final week in Mammoth. And is it one of those things where you save up everything you have for the trip, and then you know you have to prove yourself against like the best up-and-comers in the world? Because Salomon was really good about making sure they had all the young bucks on their program.
Yeah, Salomon Jib Academy was epic. Honestly, that was so cool. Such a cool opportunity. I feel like I had been like trying so hard to get there because I'd seen like Vinny Gagne go there and Alexi and like Charles and like all the people like kind of around the Quebec scene back then that I was idolizing a lot. Like we're all there, and I thought like, damn, like that'd be like the coolest thing in the world to do. And I tried to go the year before and didn't win, and then like I ended up winning the video contest that year, and I really like worked mega hard on that video. And it's funny because I was editing everything. It'd be like my mom filming me or like other homies. Like it's like so funny, but yeah, I put in my heart into that little video. I remember like it's like holy shit, the number of time I put into making that video. But yeah, that worked out well, and over there it was a dream. It was so cool. It's like, I don't know, like ski mammoth. Like I was watching all the videos and stuff, so for me it was just like a little dream to be there with all these people, and I definitely was trying to prove myself as much as I could. And I didn't win that year, so I didn't get on the Salomon team, all that, but I won second place, and I won another week at Windell's. So that was huge because I actually like went to Windell's for 3 weeks that summer, because after the 2 first years, I was able, like my grandpa got convinced that it was really good that I went to summer camp there to learn English and stuff. So he was like helping out, paying for another week. And then like, yeah, that year I went for 3 weeks, and I was 16, and that like really like took my skiing to another level. And that was like huge.
That's amazing. And while we could talk about your high school seasons, I'm not really going to do that. Things start getting interesting for your career when you get into the Windell circle, and your parents kind of see that. I'm sure they support your vision. And while a lot of people knew you had talent, did Mike Hanley almost believe in you more than anyone else? And is that how you get your scholarship to Windell's?
Yes, that is a fact. Mike Hanley is a legend, and he definitely helped me so much. And honestly, I don't know how he even saw it in me, because I don't think like I even believed it in myself. And nor did like my parents were really in touch really with like what I was, you know, or they just didn't really know the sport, right? And yeah, Mike like saw something in me that I didn't even see myself. And I mean, I did have the passion, but I just didn't have the belief that I could do anything with this. I wasn't confident as a kid that much. Not like as far as like being like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking tear this up, you know, like not at all. I was like a pretty shy, mellow kid. So, and that opportunity changed my life.
And hearing you say that you weren't that confident, you know, I was talking with Mike, and it sounds like that you could be at an event and you could be in the start gate, and it was like you might have a little bit of nerves up top or something. And then if he was up there or somebody was up there, you would look at him and be like, you know, do you think I have this? And he's like, and once he heard you say, do you think, he's like, all that you needed to hear was yes from someone that you trusted, and then that would instill the confidence in you. Is that something true, or I'm just blowing smoke up your ass?
Yeah, I mean, the first couple of years on the competition circuit, I didn't have that confidence, and that's why I wasn't landing runs, like straight up, almost like it's a mental game. A lot of it is mental, and if you can't, like, you don't really believe that you can do it, then usually you can't. And that, like, I had to work on it. I wasn't like, yeah, like Nick that just had that, you know, somehow like he was able to focus like at an early age. But it did put a ton of pressure on him, and me, I didn't really have that pressure. I was just out there like kind of having a good time.
And when you were at Windell's, there was a big crew that came up to K2 and got a tour of the K2 facility. Were you on that crew?
I was, yeah, it was awesome.
I was the guy who gave you the tour.
Really?
Yeah, that was me.
Damn, that's like, I mean, that's a really long time ago. Well, nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, totally. Like when Mike would, I think I did that like 3 or 4 times. He'd bring up a crew of kids and we'd talk, and it was crazy because it was probably you and Nick there. So there were 2 Olympic medalists that never skied on K2, but we're in K2's facility way before they were Olympians. We could have had you maybe, but we didn't, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to talk back about being in school there. And when you're at Windell's, you had mentioned Cary Miller. I like to bring him up when anybody else brings him up because he's an interesting character. He's like this older dude who travels with kids, takes them places, and creates opportunities for them. And it seems weird from the outside to me, but you were living it. Was it weird?
Nah, man. I mean, Cary is weird, but it wasn't weird.
Okay.
He took great care of us, and like, I think, like, you know, he's a very interesting person, but I still talk to him, and I have a lot of love for Cary, and whatever he did for me was really awesome. And the opportunity that he gave me or helped give me were amazing, and it changed my life.
And while I always bring him up, it's undeniable that he's helped so many people's career in skiing. Yourself, Goepper, Tanner Hall, and there's so many more in between. So the dude's made a huge contribution to the sport. It's just always, to me, like an interesting thing where he doesn't have kids that are involved in the sport. So that always makes it weird to me. But you know what? He's making a difference in people's lives, and he helped you out, and you're saying he's a good dude, and I'm going to leave it at that. The cool thing about Windell's meant that you were able to travel to contests. Sometimes you'd be traveling with Cary. And in 2012, 2013, you went to the Dew Tour for an open qualifier. And when you look back on big moments in your career, this has to be the one that sets your career in the direction that it is, because you weren't focused on being like a full-on hardcore comp kid. You were like a core industry dude who wanted to ski a lot of rails and be great in that respect. And then the Dew Tour sets you in a different direction. Would that be fair to say?
Definitely very fair to say. And like looking back at the open qualifier in Breckenridge where I did all right, but like not super good, but still skied good enough to get invited to Killington, where it was last chance qualifier, and that's what made the whole difference in my career. But it's a really funny story about that is like, I remember the event got pushed back one day, and I like was so kind of worried. I really didn't think that I had it at all, and I was like so worried. And I was like, remember talking to my mom being like, man, I just want to drive back home right now and like forget about all this. And like there was like my best friend's birthday, and I almost like wanted to just like bail to go like party, like almost. She was like, nah, like you start something, you got to go for it, you got to push for it, you got it. And yeah, I ended up making finals. Qualified. There was 2 people that qualified for the last chance qualifier. And it's so funny because it was me, Henrik, that qualified.
No
and
way.
Then Charles Gagne got injured, so he couldn't do the semifinal. So Alex Bellemare got in as well. And it's like, you know, me, Alex Bellemare, Henrik, that are last chance qualifier, 3 of us that like went so far in skiing after that. So it's kind of like insane that happened. And all 3 of us made it past the semifinals to finals. Yeah, that was like life-changing, I think, for all 3 of us. And the fact that there was the Olympics just got announced, like teams were getting selected. There was already a Canadian team, but I wasn't even close to being on it. Like nobody knew who I was. Bellemare did the same.
You guys are like the young kids. There were some legendary dudes that are like post-Switch 10 era guys that were on that first team.
Yeah, TJ Chiller, man, Ian Costco, like Charles, JF, Alexi, like just so many legends. And we were like the kids that had nothing to do there. And, you know, we ended up, me and Bellemare, getting better results than all the guys on the national team at that event. And that is where it completely changed, completely. And my parents were kind of like, okay, I guess that you can do this and you're good at this, I guess. And then like the national team was like trying to get us to go to training camps. And the next year, my coach, Jeff Cusson, had the big talk with my mom being like, yeah, your kid probably not going to university or like, you know, school next year. Like you should try to go to the Olympics. And it was so weird. It just happened so fast.
I mean, if you don't get that last chance qualifier and move on, do you pretty much become the next Frank Raymond? Do you buy a sled, focus on rails, and you do rails early season, then ski powder, and that's life?
I probably would have never bought a sled. I probably would have just been like, you know, going back to school and maybe making more urban segments and maybe filming as well. Like I was definitely like, you know, very, very passionate and really wanted to make happen. So I would have probably like went on and kept doing urban, kept doing other things. But I think I would have had like to go to school and I wouldn't have been able to like ski as much as I did. And I don't think I would have got to where I am, like not even close. If I didn't even make it to those events, like if Cary didn't get me these opportunities, like in a way, it's like that could have been like completely forgotten. And just like, instead of been traveling around the world, you just, I don't know, start having a girlfriend and decide to stay home more and just like go to school and life goes on. But here I am.
Yeah, luckily that didn't happen. You got on the Dew Tour, you started making some finals as a rookie. But I think the biggest event that season happens for you in early 2013. And while the event may not seem as big as the Dew Tour, the World Cup bronze that you get at Goepper, it's your first big podium. And do you realize that after that, you have a year to get one more podium and then you can actually make the first Olympic slopestyle team?
Yeah, I mean, it all happened really fast and it was crazy. And yeah, I was stoked to put down that run. I remember I was like having some new grabs and stuff and like a bunch of new tricks that I just learned. And yeah, that was awesome. But yeah, I wanted to like win Super Unknown and film ski parts. And the next thing you know, I was like on the national team, but it wasn't really serious back then. So it was kind of like sick. Like it was like pretty, like it was just for me, like I was like, oh, well, I can ski way more if I like join this program, right? Like I can just ski all the time. It'll be sick. And it was. But yeah, I wasn't like thinking that I was going to get a podium at that event, like at all. And it happened, and it definitely put me on like, all right, I guess I have a chance. Like I need to make this happen.
And then the next year, like going into the Olympic season, you put onto the Canadian B team. What does that mean when you get put on the B team? Do they take care of everything, like travel, training camps, and maybe even give you a little salary?
Back then, there was like because now it works differently, but we did have a lot of opportunities to like travel cost-free, and we did have some government money as well. So it was huge. Like the help from the national team was tremendous, and it was able to ski so much because of them. Yeah, for like 10 years, it was amazing.
When you get bumped up onto the A team, are there even more benefits?
Like it changed because the B team then in the end didn't get all the like training camps paid for it at some point. But like I was kind of able to like, because it was like all new and slow and I didn't really know exactly what was going on and budgets were all different, and it all worked out that I was able to get a lot of like opportunity to travel and ski for free and get government support for over 10 years.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and I'm going to start with Outdoor Research. While I love that they sponsor my podcast, I've been wearing OR gear since I moved to Seattle in 2000. I started with one of their rain jackets, as if you live in Seattle and don't own one, you're doing things wrong. And based on how amazing that jacket worked for me, Outdoor Research gear is the only outerwear I've bought with my own money. And I've been privileged over the years. I get a lot of free stuff, but I've still bought my gear from OR because it's the best. These days, while they've brought in new designers and the styles and the cuts have gotten cooler and more my style, one thing that won't change is the quality. That's the reason you see course skiers and snowboarders, climbers, and now mountain bikers swearing by OR. Because if you want the best, head on over to outdoorresearch.com to see what I'm talking about. Next up, it's Best Day Brewing. And if you're like me, you love having a cold one, but you don't have the time for the alcohol to slow you down. That's where Best Day comes in. Think all the flavor of your favorite beer, whether that be a Kolsch, a hazy IPA, a Mexican lager, the Shandy, or the brand new Pilsner, which is quickly becoming my favorite Best Day. And they come guilt-free, as Best Day has a fraction of the calories of your regular beer, they won't stop you from driving anywhere, and you won't be hungover in the morning. And for people who drink beer with alcohol, here is my secret trick to extending my night. Mix in a Best Day every couple drinks, and you'll find yourself to be more coherent, more fun, and primed to have your best day or night ever. Trust me, it definitely works. And to find out more about Best Day, head on over to bestdaybrewing.com or buy some on Amazon. My final sponsor this round is Stanley, and they've been supporting this podcast for years before they became the hottest brand in America. Why did I want to work with Stanley? Because Stanley's products are light years better than the competition. While everyone knows about their quencher, which is everywhere, I swear by their adventure stacking beer pint glasses, and I use them every day. And when ski season comes around, I use Stanley's food jars and lunch boxes and bring them to the mountain to save me from buying $25 burgers. It's the ultimate saving money hack at the mountain. And Stanley's the brand that invented the category of keeping things hot and cold, and they've been doing it for over 100 years, so you know you're getting the best when you buy a Stanley. To find out more about all their products and collections, head on over to stanley1913.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Back to competing in like the 2013-14 season. It's a windy dew tour day at Breckenridge. You're able to put down a run and you took second place. That's big for you. That's real money at the dew tour, I would think. And now I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent. First, weather can be shit at any different event, but organizers want to run their events, and sometimes that can put you in danger. What's the worst of that you've had to compete in?
Oh, that's a good question. Like now I'm trying to rethink because I've just been so many contests and so many shitty ones, honestly. Man, the worst the worst story, like the craziest story or like the craziest fight we've ever had was at World Championships in like Spain. We didn't compete, but like that was like a crazy moment because they were like, yeah, we're gonna run this event, and like people like were like, no way, and like we had to like get in a fight with organizers almost. Like it was crazy. That time was like nuts. Like you guys probably seen the videos and stuff for the story of the FIS guy that was like saying that we had to do this and whatever. And then the Swiss coach like made a whole thing about it. But like that was cool. Like that was like everybody came together, kind of national teams, coaches, athletes, to be like, yo, you know what? Like if we're not here, like you got nothing and we're not doing this. And that was cool.
So that's weather. But when you get that podium at Dew Tour in that windy one in Breckenridge, does that second place finish lock you into a spot for the Olympics right there?
Honestly, I don't remember, but no, I don't think so. There was always like other mogul skiers and other people that if they did that, they did that, they did that. Like it was kind of always like a little bit of a struggle to get on the team. You only knew just before. So that was not fully locked in, really.
So how do you find out that you make the Canadian Olympic team? Like when do they give you a phone call saying, hey, you're going to the Olympics? And then when you find that out, do you call your parents and is it like a big moment for them?
There wasn't really like one moment because like it was always like it was something that like we were talking about constantly kind of thing, you know, like on looking at like the results and your chances and this and that, and it was analyzed and it was like, you know, something that like was like talked about forever. So it's more like until like you're on the plane and you're not injured and you're actually going that it gets real.
And then when you go to that Olympics, when you think of like your mental state, I mean, you're 19 years old. Are you mature and focused enough at that point to know how to put it together on a big stage like that?
Not really. Like, it's a very interesting take. Like 2014 was one that like, I don't have regrets. You know, I was just there and at that time in my life in that headspace, but I was almost there as like a fan. Like I remember watching the person before me's run on the screen and like being like, oh my God, that was a sick run, you know? And like, then like I was dropping like 30 seconds. So that was not, you know, where I was in 2018 at all. And I think I grew a lot from all these mistakes. But no, I wasn't like focused enough. I didn't put it down in finals and I don't think I was focused enough. I was more like, oh, this is like so cool that I'm here kind of thing, and wanting to do well, of course, and wanted to land my run. And I had a run that would have been epic. I think if I landed it, I would have been so stoked. And I did right before the finals. I landed in practice and that was my dream run. Probably still one of my best runs ever. But yeah, I couldn't put it down. I wasn't focused enough or mentally ready to get it all together.
And now, many years later, like almost 10 years later, looking back, how has your approach changed in contests that allows you to be more focused? Because I'm sure you've made some tweaks over the years, and given that you're not competing right now, but like in 2018, how do you approach that differently?
I was like in a completely different mindset, completely different like way of seeing things, and had like worked on that quite a bit. And I was way less distracted. I would say that like, so I was more focused by being more concentrated on what I had to do and on my body and on everything than on like just being there like, oh my God, like this is happening. That's so cool. Like, wow, like the skiing of other people. At that point, I was like dead focused on like what I was doing, what I had to do and my performance, and also way less distracted about like the judges, what they thought, or like my coach's little comment or whatever. I knew what I was doing and I was ready to get it done.
Regardless, in that first Olympics, you make the finals. You're the only Canadian that does. That's because you're the only Canadian on the slopestyle team. That's another podcast all to itself. But when you think about your Russia Olympic highlights, what were they?
For me, the switch triple on the last jump that I did in that run I was just saying, and I didn't practice a bunch of times, like switch triple 14 wasn't something that I had that much in the bag at all before that, but that jump was just so big and so nice, and I like landed a couple times really well in practice at the Olympics, and that like definitely like kind of like took also like my confidence level in these bigger tricks and stuff to another level, because I was able to like practice it over and over again on an awesome jump. Like the last jump in Sochi was just so good. It was insane.
What's amazing to me is you go into the biggest contest of your life, and given that you're practicing during training and stuff, but these aren't tricks that you like know you can land every time. You're not doing a safe run to get a score. You're dropping hammers to get on a podium, and if you don't get your whole run, you don't get your whole run. That is one way to approach a contest, and I respect the shit out of that, because when it all comes together, it all comes together. With the Olympics, you go home from Russia, and then you go right into filming with Stepped. And what a juxtaposition that is, going from like the most corporate, like contest in the history of the world to going to ski with the most loosest, gnarliest dudes in the world, it seems like. How different a mentality is that going from the Olympics to skiing with the step dudes?
Oh, it was great. It was awesome. In 2014, they came to my hometown of Quebec City. I was just so stoked, man. Like, that's all I wanted to be doing. I'd been filming with them the year before, and it was sick. And, like, I'd been, like, thinking about all these tricks and ideas and stuff, and I was, like, so fired up to go film, actually. And I came right back home after the Olympics, and, like, I had been going hard at the contest to get there and stuff. So now it was like I was going to take a break from contests and focus on what I really wanted to do. And it was to film street. And I went hard and right away got injured first setup.
Oh, it sucks.
It was one of the gnarliest setups that I've ever tried, I think, now that I look back at it. And I just wanted, like, right away to get the sickest clip ever. It was pretty ridiculous when I think about it. I wish I could see that footage.
When you go for the sickest trick ever on what is your first setup, I mean, I looked to those step dudes as doing some gnarly shit, and a lot of the stuff when they'd show me clips, afterwards I'd be like, that was so sick, but it didn't look fun at all. Like, you went down 30 times, you like rubbed your face on cheese grater stairs, and yeah, you got the clip, but was it fun? And they could never ever say like, yeah, that was so fun. It was, you know, afterwards when you're watching the clip, that's when it's fun. That's when it's like, holy shit, we got it, and it's all the emotion. For you, doing gnarly shit like that, is it fun, or is it afterwards showing people, just seeing their reaction?
I mean, it's pushing your own limits. Like, it's not the reaction. Nobody really does it for the reaction. Like, they do it because that's what we just like to, like, go and do gnarly shit and push ourselves and kind of, like, do things that haven't been done. Like, that's what you get out of it. I feel like just, like, trying things that, like, as I've never been done, and, like, trying to, like, push yourself, and just, like, what I enjoy about it is the crew, like the crew aspect of being out there shoveling, like helping each other. It's the time spent on the street, driving around, you know, like chatting shit, like all that stuff. That's the fun part, you know? And then, like, there's the adrenaline part of, like, going and doing these things and, like, committing. Like, you have to commit fully to some of these features and tricks. And I think we all get a kick out of that in a way. But yeah, then shit happens sometimes and you get injured and stuff, but that's like all part of making it happen. And it was also like a bigger venture. I think everybody was doing him to push themselves, but also everybody was like, yo, we're gonna make like the sickest ski movie, you know? Like, it was like a group effort in that way, and we would all like help each other and like help push each other. But like, it's funny, you'd be amazed, like sometimes you'd be a crew of people that would react, and sometimes, like, you know, you've hit this rail like 50 times already, and like once you get it, it's like, all right, well, let's get the hell out of here. And it's like so normalized being out there, being with the crew. That comes back as the good memories to me.
Yeah, I can see the camaraderie around all that is pretty cool. And going into 2014, you have big plans. You get a place in Colorado, and heading into X Games, I think that might be your first one. I'm not sure. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. But in your first run in prelims, you have a banger run. You make it to finals. You have to be really, really psyched. Before you can compete for gold, you have your second run, and that's when plans change. What happens?
Big moment like that changed my life again. This one event, and for the better or the worse, but I think for the better. I end up landing my run right out the gate. I'm first to drop, and I'm psyched on this run. Like, I'm really, really stoked on this run that I just put down. It had new tricks and new things in it, and then I get an 80. And man, I remember like going back to the top, straight up going into the woods when I come out of the snowmobile, and I was legit slamming my head against a tree.
Just pissed off at judges?
Just so fucking pissed off. I'd worked so hard. Like, you're just like putting so much pressure on yourself, or I was, at least at that time, and I was like, I need this now, you know, like I need this big break now. Like, it needed to happen, and like that's how like I kind of like saw it in my head. And yeah, I was being impulsive with all that, like thinking that, yeah, I deserved way more. No. And like, I go and talk to my coach, and I'm like all pissed off and riled up. And I decide, like, all right, second one, I'm going to go for the dub bio 12 at the end instead of the 10, because like, fuck it. Like, I can do it. And then like I land my whole run, second run, and I go show up in the last jump and I'm all riled up and I like toss my dub 12 that I don't have in the back that I shouldn't have been doing because I only done it a couple times before. And I just huck it like hard and go all the way to 14 because I go massive. Because I popped like a maniac and then I blow my knee. Jet back to the bottom and I'm first right of the second run. And I think I was like in like fifth position after first run or something. So I was like, dude, I'm never making finals. Like I have to land this run. So now I don't land that run and I'm all bummed out. And then I can't walk. Like I blew my knee. And then after everybody goes for the second run, I'm in 8th place and I made finals.
Oh.
So that's like something that I look back as like a real changing moment in, I mean, I had to like think back at it and like grow from it. But like I learned a lot from that moment afterwards, seeing like the sports psych and stuff and really like looking back at like where I failed in that. And in so many ways I failed because like, you know, if I stuck to my game plan and stuck to like what I had and what I knew for sure, like if I landed even that run again with like a bit more flavor and stuff, I could have done great and I would have made finals anyways. And what's kind of funny and full circle is like I'm 8th place. I never made finals at the X Games in Aspen because the year before I blew it in qualies and failed both runs. And then like Nick is in 9th place and we're kind of like having a little bit of a rivalry at that point. And he qualifies because I bail out and he wins the event.
Oh, man.
So I remember looking back at that being like, damn, I had it. Like I had all these new tricks. Like I was just like so bummed and definitely pissed off. But by having to have that surgery, I like went back home, spent a lot of time home with my family, with my friends, with like the people that I love. And then like I had to start working out because I wasn't really working out before and stuff. Like I was just like moving a lot and doing a lot of things, but wasn't like really working on my body in a gym.
You're becoming an athlete?
I had to. Like I got sprung right into that because of my injury. And I learned so much from my physical trainer. And you know, that's where I really like set myself apart on that discipline because I just wanted to really go back to skiing so much. Like that's all I had in my head. And I like went to the gym for 9 months in a row, 6 days a week. When I came back to skiing, it was kind of funny because they were actually like all worried about like my knees and don't jump too much and stuff. And it's like I went to Stubai and I took a day of like skiing the slope. The physio was looking at me and stuff because I had to get all checked out to be able to like go back to this and that. And then like even that day I was like, fuck it, I'm going to hit rails. And then I even hit some small jumps and I was like, fuck this, I'm good. Like I'm back, like I'm strong. And third day or something of that camp, I was like doing big triples on the big jump, like third day back skiing from the blown knee. And I was like, I felt so much stronger. It was insane. And like, the fact that you can't do like what you love most for so long, I thought about it so much and it kind of like came back with like a fresh breath of like passion. Like it was just like I was so fired up when I came back. And all the time spent with the sports psychologist, kind of like seeing why I wanted to do this, like what I wanted to do, to look at like what I was worried about, the judges and all things that like I shouldn't have been worried about in my mind because I can't control all those things, and like what I should have been focused on and all these things. It's all that downtime that I was able to like use these little tools, and that just put me on like a way better path for the rest of my competitive career at least.
So you get that year off of snow, or not a year, but you take a lot of time off of snow to rehab yourself. You get yourself stronger than you've ever been. You're skiing better than you ever have. You get the invite back to X Games in 2016. And then boom, you break a collarbone. That takes you out for another season. How frustrating is it? I mean, it's got to be so frustrating because you're talking about thinking about skiing so much and then it gets taken away from you again. Is it just like puts you in like a state of depression when you do your collarbone?
It does. Every time you get injured, man, I'm bummed. like, you know, like I'm going to not be able to keep doing what I do. But then I think like all these injuries over the years in a way, like just really made me learn about like, hey, there's other things in life. There's other cool things. And I think that helped me be less stressed in the long run over contests and like kind of feel like, all right, well, like 2 seasons go by, but like, hey, like sponsors were still helping me out. Like people still believed, and like I still was able to come back. And I know longer term, I think it helped me build all that confidence. And yeah, another 6 weeks, no skiing. But like when I came back to skiing, it was Beanie Invitational and I was fired up and like, was throwing down there. So it's like, yeah, I would have been able to do really good that year in 2016. And I missed all the contests, but it wasn't the worst timing ever. Like it wasn't like an Olympic year, and like you gotta like keep moving forward and keep your head up, because if not, then you're not gonna do shit. Like going into depression is not gonna help me. I need to like keep moving forward, keep training, keep being stronger, keep dreaming about what I can do.
If there were any doubters about you coming back, you shut everyone up with a bronze at the Dew Tour in 2016. That has to be huge for your confidence when you can come off an injury or 2 injuries, come back to like a first big contest and get on a podium.
Yeah, it was sick. Like that definitely gave me confidence back, and this like mental strategy that I was never able to put to work in 2016, like in that winter. So I'd been working on that since my injury, and I was never able to like really test it out. So that was something that I was like really kind of like looking forward to, was like getting back in like contest mode and trying to see like if this new kind of strategy and mental mindset like what was going to work. And that was really good for his first start.
And then going into 2017 X Games, you're healthy and you lay down a run that gets you a bronze medal. Can you describe what it's like finally getting on an X Games podium? Because in the grand scheme of your life, before there were the Olympics, there was the X Games, and that's kind of what you grew up watching. So I would think standing on that podium means a whole lot.
Oh yeah, it does. It definitely did. It was huge. It was a big moment for me. I always dreamed of being on the X Games podium and had so many of my idols do it. And yeah, it was awesome. But at the same time, like, yeah, I was really in that mindset where I was like, if I can land the run that I'm proud of, that's my goal. And anytime that I would do that, even if I was 5th, 6th, 10th, yes, it comes with like frustration. If you're like, 16th and you landed the run that you're proud of, you're like, fuck, all right. But I was just trying to go by that. And of course, getting a podium and, like getting money and helps with sponsors and all that stuff, like it's a bonus.
The next big thing for you coming up is the next Olympic Games. You're one of the older guys now. You're like 23 years old, which is still young, but it's obviously getting older in the ski world when you're talking about spinning like 21s and shit like that. Was it hard to make the team with all the progression of the tricks that have been happening? Like, did it take a lot longer to lock your spot in?
I almost didn't make it to the 2018 Olympics. That's the real truth, because I did well the season before. With a couple podiums in 2017 X Games and a World Cup. So I had good results from the year before. But then at Dew Tour 2017, so right coming at the Olympics, I got a big concussion. I knocked myself out completely. I was out for like a minute and a half, and I had a huge concussion. So I missed 4 or 5 qualifying events. So I missed all of them. And those were counting for a lot more points than the events the year before. And I couldn't compete, right? So I couldn't like try to qualify and beat the other Canadians or whatever. So they all did well at these events, and I was almost on the chopping block. Like Evan, Belmar, and Teal, they did super well. And then there was Noah Morrison too that was doing well. And at some point, like if Noah Morrison podium in this event, he was going to get the spot at the Olympics, and I wasn't going to get it. But at that point, like it didn't even matter, because I was at home over Christmas, and I couldn't go to Christmas and I couldn't go to New Year's, and I was like having a traumatic brain injury and a concussion. It wasn't like that bad, but still, like I was at home really depressed, because that's not just like a limb or something, like that's your head. Like I was not feeling good at all.
Yeah.
I told my parents and my family, like they'd book some stuff to go to Korea, and I told them like cancel all that stuff right away. Like I do not need this pressure. I don't think I will be going. I told everybody that like I'm not going to go if like I don't really feel good with my head. Like I'm not willing to take these risks. And yeah, when it was Christmas time, like a week after the concussion, I was not feeling good at all. And I was like, I'm not going. Fuck that. Like I can't do that.
Right.
And then things started evolving and get way better. And like I got so much support from the national team, honestly, with trainers and everything. And I ended up seeing on my own, paying money to go see a neuropsychologist and doing these huge batteries of tests and stuff and talking to her and having a bunch of sessions to like make sure my brain was fully healed from this concussion. Because if that's when it's really bad, is you have a concussion and it doesn't heal fully, and then you get another one, and then it can be really, really bad for you.
Yeah. It makes it so much easier to get another one, right? When it's not healed.
Yeah. And the effect are multiplied too. It's like exponential. So
okay.
I was like not ready to put myself in danger, but I really wanted to go, of course, and stuff. And like there was all that pressure. But I felt like I dealt with that pretty well in terms of like really thinking about myself first and taking really all the advice I could. And in the end, I passed all these tests and all my results were really good and stuff. So it was like, okay, like I guess I can do it. And if I was going to go to the Olympics, I was like, man, I haven't skied in a while. Like I need to go to X Games. And I actually needed to, because the team, like they have a whole protocol and you need to hit big jumps and stuff in the concussion protocol to come back and like do flips and like slowly though, like hit jumps and see how you feel, and then do single flips and see how you feel, and do double flips and see how you feel. I was doing that while X Games practice in 2018.
You're clearing protocol in training?
Yeah, of X Games. Yeah, it was pretty nuts, honestly. But yeah, the X Games that year like didn't go super well for me, but it was really good practice. And yeah, going into the Olympics, I felt like I really didn't have any pressure, so that was good.
And going into that games, is that really what makes you do well? Because I mean, I talk to so many people, and when anyone ever puts pressure on themselves, they're talking about it and like, oh, I had so much pressure and I failed. But then when I told all my family to cancel their plane tickets and I told no one to come out and I didn't think I was going to win and I was totally relaxed in the start gate, that's when I got on the podium, or that's what I won. Is that kind of what happened with you? Is like you came in there with no expectations and you hadn't skied as much as you normally had, and then you fucking walk away with an Olympic bronze medal?
Oh, I even got more bashed on the head, because it's like as soon as I got to the Olympics, I skied the course, and second run, I like hit a knuckle a little bit and like locked my back up terribly, and I like couldn't practice that day. And it was just 3 days of practice, but I was like in so much pain. So I was just kept getting bashed on the head in New Zealand before like I got a due tour thing. I hurt my knee. Anyways, I had so many like kind of little things. I think that's where the mindset really came in, and the fact that I'd been talking with that sports psych, and he was there on site with the national team, and I was able like to see him, and 5-6 physios every day for my back, and like they elevated me to like be like at the start gate, because my body was like just destroyed in so many ways, and that's like kind of funny. But then I had to like use these skills that I learned from the mental preparation, and like I would just go and do like 4 or 5 runs, and that's it. Like, you know, every practice I barely practiced at that Olympics. And the first practice when I hurt my back, I wanted to keep skiing, but I couldn't physically. But I standed on the side of the course and I analyzed people's ski pass and like ski the course. Like I standed there for 2 hours just to watch other people ski,
just figuring out speeds and snow and shit.
And I figured out my run without skiing, because I figured out how people were using the course and what would work and what lines could potentially work. And then I made it all up in my mind. And then the next day I went and like tried it like little piece by piece. And yeah, they were just like gluing me all up together. And I think in that sense, like I was worried about so many other things than winning a medal and stuff. I just went and like stopped my run, and that's all that mattered. And boom, like there I was, and I couldn't believe it. Like I just couldn't believe it that like I was sitting in second place for all the second run of the finals, and then in third place, like in the end, like yeah, just been bashed in the head like so many times in the last 6-9 months that I was just like, yeah, it was epic.
That's incredible, man. And at the end of the day, what does getting the bronze medal mean to you, your family, and really your legacy?
That's an interesting question, because I barely see it. Like it's just in a little box somewhere. And I think a lot of people like attribute so much to like an Olympic medal, but I'm just proud of how I was able to persevere through the hard times, and how I was able to like, you know, land my run and show my best skiing on the world stage, and kind of, how I was able to react to all these situations. Like that's what I'm proud of. And I think that's what my family would say also that they're proud of. And the medal, like if I would have got 4th or 5th or 6th or whatever, like it wouldn't have really mattered that much, because I would have been able to still showcase my skiing, still like do everything I did. And Yeah, it's huge in terms of like a legacy. People are going to be like, oh, that's on your resume. And it's like so cool. Like, I hope that I inspired kids in Canada and I gave them the dream. Like, that's what I want. You know, that's what I truly want for my legacy to be. It's like, man, like, get out there, have fun, go ski, push yourself in any sport, in anything. Like, just go out there and have fun. And if you have a passion, and go for it and push it. And I think other people that don't win Olympic medals like I did are doing the same thing, and I give them so much props for it. Like Alex Hackle that was at Windell's with me and stuff, and he went in a completely different direction that's not competing because he didn't get all these opportunities. He was from the States. It was more competitive. I could have been tossed in like his shoes, but how like he grew and now is like, you know, spreading the love for skiing is as righteous as having an Olympic medal. So it's not about the result for me. It's about the good times and hopefully like inspiring people to do what I love.
Well, your answer really makes me smile. It's kind of refreshing to hear someone talk about that because it sounds like you don't have that competitive drive that a lot of people do, that is just all about winning. It's more about the full experience and inspiring other people. So you're really this Canadian hero. And the next season, you have your biggest X Games year ever. You take 2 silvers in Aspen and you get a bronze for real ski. And while I could talk about Aspen for a while, we've been going for a while, so I'm not going to talk about Aspen at all. You got 2 silver medals there. It's fucking awesome. What I'm going to talk about is probably what's the more important to you, is really showcasing your ski ability, and that's your real ski part in 2019. You get the bronze medal there, but there's only a few people chosen in the world for an event like that. It's like the most elite crew in skiing, and your trick list and just the different style of tricks that you do, it stands out compared to everybody else. And was that the goal? Almost do tricks on features that wouldn't be in any other edit in real ski?
I mean, you were just saying that I wasn't that competitive. Like, I'm not super competitive about the results, but I'm competitive with myself, and I really wanted to put my heart out in that part. It had been a dream of mine. Like, there's legit spots that I'd been saving for like a part like that, something that I would go all in and put my heart into it, and I did. And I went as hard as I possibly could, and I risked everything. And I did get injuries and stuff from that, but I'm really proud of what I was able to do then. And it was awesome. Like, it was a dream come true to even be able to get an invite with all these other people that deserve so much. And then to like be able to have all these clips that we got, like we worked so hard for them. And yeah, then the normal contest seemed like fairly mellow compared to what I'd been putting myself through.
And I will say, there's a ton of tricks in that edit that look to me like they're influenced by rollerblading, and I fucking love that. I mean, there's like a back farve, I think. There's a ton of backslides, maybe a pud slide in there. I mean, was that ever part of your younger life?
It was. I did rollerblade when I was a kid, and I was super into rollerblading. You know, D-Structure, this sick shop in Quebec City, used to have rollerblades. And like, I don't know, I got influenced by that a lot, and really, yeah, definitely was inspired by rollerblading and other, you know, idols of mine like Charles Gagné that were doing tricks like that.
Awesome. Well, in that X Games edit, like I said, you got the bronze medal. But what's wild to me is I was thinking about you only getting X Games silver because I was looking at your medals and it's like, oh, he only got X Games silver, no X Games gold. Then I was like, let me look into the biggest event he's ever won. And I kept searching and searching and I couldn't find one for you. Is not having a big win something that bothers you? To me, based on our interview, I'm guessing you're going to say it doesn't matter at all. But do you think about that ever?
Well, what could I do to change it? You know, like, it would have been great to win an event. It would have been awesome. Like, I won the WSSF here one year, and it was winner take all, and I made $20,000, and I thought that was a pretty good win.
So I missed that one.
Apart from that, yeah, I was just out there doing the best I could, and there was other people that were really good at the sport, like very, very talented people, like, you know, Burke Rude, Andrew, like all these guys, Kobe, like, I don't know, like there was so many people that could have beat me at so many times. And the talent, man, that came at the end too, like some of the new kids that came up were just so talented that it was hard, and props to them, you know, like, hell yeah.
Well, you know what? You've got many X Games medals, you've got an Olympic bronze medal, and you've always made it a priority to film as well, which not every single person does. And I think you filmed with Blank in 2016 a bit. In 2020, you make the move to Whistler, and you're going to film with Blank some more. Is this pretty much the start of ABM takes his tricks to the backcountry phase of your career?
Yeah. I guess after X Games Real Ski, I thought I'd push my limits in the streets, and pretty much like I just put everything I had into that. And after that, I was kind of like, I don't even know what else I would be doing out there in the streets. So I was looking for like what was next. And when I was young, my idols, JF Fool, like they were doing backcountry parts too, like, you know, JP Auclair, all these guys. Like I'd always dreamed of going to the backcountry. It was always in the back of my mind. I just didn't have the opportunity to do so before because I was filming the street, competing, too busy, not enough time and resources to go live out west and buy a snowmobile and stuff. But now it's like, all right, this is the time. This is now or never. Like I'm moving out of Quebec and I'm going to go and try to do this. Like I want to try to go snowmobile and go explore these mountains. And it's been something that's just been calling me forever. And I'd been lucky enough to like go with a couple homies here and there, and Kobe and Joss like took me out in Utah, and it really just got me to really want to do this and to gain all this knowledge. That's the harder part, but yeah, I was just like, all right, let's do it, and made the move, and I'm so happy I did.
And you're now part of the Blank crew. I think you've been in Follow the Forecast, Tales from Cascadia, Fortune Hunters, and whatever project Alexi is in the basement editing right now. You're part of that as well, I believe.
I'm actually not, but
oh man, god damn it.
But it's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, what happened with Blank? Why aren't you with them?
Just sponsors. Rockstar was sponsoring the movie, and that was great. And that is actually why I changed from being on Monster to Rockstar, because I wanted to film with these guys in particular. So I needed a crew to like kind of teach me the ways, and those were the right guys. And I knew them, and they were in Canada, and I thought, this is it. So I made that move, and it was great. It was so great for 4 years. But with Rockstar bailing out of skiing completely, just not wanting to spend their money in skiing anymore, I guess. Not that they were spending much of it, but they do their marketing decisions, and that's the way it is. And then there was no more money for me to film with Blank, and then Blank is very like a little bit Salomon, too much maybe for vocal to want to like be part of that, and I completely get that. So this year is going to be the first year that I filmed a solo project in the backcountry, and there's going to be a bit of shots of Teal and Jacob Belanger because I filmed with them a bunch this year. Yeah, the Blank opportunity was awesome, and now it was just time to go and do my own thing.
And while everything has been a progression for you, I mean, it starts with rails, then it moves to park stuff, contests, you're always filming video stuff, but it seems like everybody who follows that route eventually graduates to want to be in the backcountry filming, which that's where you are now. And then the next big step is to head to Alaska and go ski there. Is that something that's on your bucket list of something that you want to do?
Of course. It's a dream. Like, I mean, of course, everybody dreams about going there. I wasn't ready for it really in the past because I needed to gain more experience and be more at ease with making decisions in the backcountry. And I want to be smart about it and not put myself in too much danger. But I really hope to get the opportunity to be able to go. I might never, and that's also fine, but it's on the bucket list. I would really want to make it happen, and I'm going to work my ass off to make it happen.
All right, well, we are almost at the section that I call Inappropriate Questions, but I didn't do the whole sponsor and money part, and I'm going to leave the money part out this time. You know why? Because people think I'm tacky for asking about it, and I really actually do care about it, but I don't really care to ask you about it now. But we should call out your sponsors because they support you. Who are the people that pay you?
Right now it is Orage and Vocal skis, and I am so thankful for the support. Vocal, Marco Dalbello have been with me for the last 13 years, and legendary, like the team manager, everybody. Like, I think Vocal gets hate because like people think it's too corporate and stuff, but like, man, like what they've been doing is so sick, and all the riders that come together to create these skis and the products that are coming out are sick, and there's new products in the talks with Kai, and I don't know, I think the team is epic, and I'm just super proud to be part of that. So that's awesome. And then Orage is super awesome as well. Like, clothing sponsors were a hard thing, and Orage was going in the same direction as I was going, towards more backcountry, and we filmed the campaign in Alaska, actually.
Oh, sick.
I didn't get to ski really big stuff, just like conditions didn't work out for us. So that's the way it is. And yeah, I'm just so stoked to like be supporting a company from Quebec, where I'm from, that is going in the right direction.
All right, well, that is the body of our podcast. Now it's time for Inappropriate Questions. This is the place where I get someone that you know to ask you 3 questions, and they can be anything. This week, I was able to get another badass friend of yours to provide the questions. While Alexi Godbout has been stuck in the Batcave editing, he's had a similar path to you in pro skiing. He was a comp guy who graduated to the big mountains, and he's part of the brains behind the Blank Collective. And he absolutely shreds. And are you ready for question number 1 from Alexi?
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, here we go.
I was really trying to do my best to think of some inappropriate question for ABM, but apparently there's not that many that come to mind. First question, what were you doing walking for 2 hours at 5 a.m. in Niseko?
Of course he was going to come up with some stuff like that. Oh my God. Yeah, one night with the boys in Japan, there was no Powell to be skied, so we ended up going out and, one too many drinks, actually a lot too many drinks, and then single life, and then I see this girl, and anyways, we ended up hooking up, going to her place. It was terrible, so I ended up bailing from there, but then it was 5 a.m. and I had to walk for like 2.5 hours because there's absolutely no taxi in Niseko that even exists. And I looked for them, but I walked over, I'd say 8-9 kilometers in the winter in the middle of the night, and I got back at the hotel, and next thing you know, I hadn't looked myself in the mirror, and I had a bunch of hickeys on my neck, and the guys had a really, really good laugh. And yeah, as tonight I don't remember a lot, and I'm happy to not remember much of it.
What was so terrible about it? That's like the last thing I expect to hear is like, this girl took me home and it was terrible.
I mean, she was living in like a staff accom. So we hooked up on the couch, but it was so shitty. It was just bad. She didn't really have a bed except in a dorm room and stuff. So it wasn't happening. It was just I'm drunk. It's I'm way too fucked up. I don't even know what I'm doing here. And yeah, I ended up just bailing. And then it was the walk of shame.
All right, well, a long walk of shame. Let's go into question number 2.
And second question, who is the biggest party animal at the Sochi Olympics?
Now, I want to preface this with, when we talk about party animal, a lot of the athletes these days are pure athletes, I feel like, who are focused, they're in the gym, they're working out, because some of the tricks and some of the things that you guys are doing, there is no room for error. But you come from an era where partying was still part of the game, and do you still live that?
I mean, I do not still live that. We all grew older, but in Sochi I was 19, and to answer Alexi's question, I was definitely the biggest party animal. I don't know if anybody else would have something else to say, but there's definitely the Canadians, Mark Getz, and these guys, they were going hard as well. I mean, yeah, it was pretty insane. Dory, Mark Getz, and all the half-pipe team, they had things to celebrate, right? And they were going hard, but to think that all the Olympic athletes are not partying and are just athletes that work out in the gym all the time and stuff is the most false thing that I've ever heard. I think people work their ass off so much that, when it all comes down after 4 years, you put your energy so much into one thing. People let very loose. And when you work so hard, you know how to party so hard a lot of the times. People that make it there usually are pretty extreme. So when the partying gets going, it gets going. And yeah, it was really fun. I was very, very, very tired when I came home from the Olympics.
Well, that's a good thing. Let's go with your final inappropriate question.
Can you tell us a bit more about your shittiest shoulder dislocation experience in the backcountry?
Ended on a low, huh?
Oh, yeah, that one's not a fun one, Alexi. Damn, it was a terrible day. That's for sure. But thanks to Alexi, Stan, Mike Hennetuck, and Jess Hodder that were there, and that helped me. And I learned a lot through that injury. It was very shitty. I ended up going on a natural feature that was a kind of a step down, but it's so hard to gauge speed. Honestly, that's always the hardest part in big jumps and slope style runs and stuff. It's always speed, but backcountry is so different because a lot of the things are step downs, and the steepness is hard to judge when you haven't been on the slope at all and all that. So you're always it's always your first try. And I misjudged completely how fast I need to go, and I went gigantic. My shoulder dislocated, and we weren't able to put it back together. We tried for an hour and a half. We tried, and I don't think we were pulling hard enough, but we had pretty good techniques. We tried the normal, putting your shoulder back techniques. People knew what they were doing. Yeah. Alexis and Jess, they're all very, very helpful. And it wasn't the first time that it was popping out. It was the second time for me. But the last time we had been able to put it back in the backcountry. So that time we weren't. We were so far, like it was so far that there was no way I was going to snowmobile out of there. And I was in shock, and I was getting colder, and I had like legit everybody had an extra down jacket, which was huge. And I suggest everybody to always have an extra down jacket. And I had 5 down jackets, and I was starting to like be cold, and it was a nice day. Like it wasn't even cold. But search and rescue came and got me out of there, and Alexi and Stan were legends and got my snowmobile out of there. And like, yeah, thanks, like props to these guys for being like just so on it. And I hope that if something happens to one of my friends, I can do the same as they did and get them home safe. And yeah, it wasn't the most fun, but you know, you learn from these things, and it was like, I guess it ruined the day of the crew, and it was a good day. So that is also something that I'm bummed about. But I think these guys looking back were probably gonna be like, we did the right thing, and they got me home safe.
Well, that sucks, but that was good that they got you home safe. And that's Inappropriate Questions. That's our podcast. And for a kid who wanted to be a hockey player at first, you did really, really well in skiing. But for it all to work out for you, it was like a few key things had to happen. There was paying for summer camp with making beanies. There was winning a week to summer camp. There was getting a scholarship to Windell's. And then there was having that opportunity to compete in the Open Dew Tour and then the Last Chance qualifier. If those things don't happen, regardless of the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into skiing, there's a good chance that you aren't on an Olympic podium. And while skiing is so much more than contests for you, and you've proven that time and time again with your video parts, the stories are so much more complete when an athlete can do both, and you've been able to do that your whole career. Thanks for telling us about it, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for taking the time, and yeah, thanks so much for talking about all these stories of all these athletes and stuff. I love listening to it and learning about everybody that's involved in the industry. So thanks to you, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So that was time with ABM, and that's the first time I've had an Olympic medalist on the podcast who really had no aspirations of being a contest kid. And while ABM has made a living by competing, I'm sure he looks at himself as much more than just a competitor, and he should. His street skiing is just as impressive as his contest skiing, and that's a really hard thing to pull off. But ABM did pull it off with style for days, and that's what people are going to remember. That's the podcast. At this point, I want to thank you for listening. I also want to ask you to review me wherever you listen. It really does help the show grow. So does telling your friends about the show. And I'm guessing that if you like listening to what I'm talking about and my guests, that your friends are probably going to like the same thing as well. So please let them know about the podcast. I'm not a famous athlete with a built-in audience. I'm just a regular dude who has an awesome podcast, and I want to get it out to the world. You can help me out, so please do that for me. I appreciate the shit out of it. Finally, I appreciate the shit out of you supporting my amazing sponsors who make this thing happen. And they are Club Med, Outdoor Research, Stanley, Best Day Brewing, Elon Skis, and Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Have a great week, everyone.